ZBD. Some of you might know me as Peachy Hoddle. I'm super pumped to have you guys with me here because I'm so excited to ask everyone on this panel the questions that I have today. Being next to some of these people who are building and doing everything that they're doing on the Lightning Network is really awesome, and I'm really pumped to hear everyone's responses today. We'll also just get started here with introductions, so I'll pass the mic over to Michael and just let us know where you're from, a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll kind of pass it over.
I'm from Atlanta, and I work at ZBD full time. That's my thing, and then as my passion thing that I do once a year is TabConf. So this is like the way I feel like I get back to other than ZBD, and yeah, and I feel like I'm one of the first people to use Lightning and get wrecked on it in 2018, and I'm also, I feel like, one of the first people to deal with a scaling problem of Lightning, where some of the current software didn't really work so well when it came to, we're talking, tens of thousands or millions of transactions per day. So architecting out some solutions around that has been a fun challenge, and I want to hand it off to my left. Or you already have a mic, I want to hand it back to you.
Awesome. I'm Jesse Schrader, co-founder and CEO at Amboss.space, or Amboss Technologies, and started off as an early node runner, got teamed up with the developer behind ThunderHub, who's here in the audience, and yeah, we offer a Lightning Network Explorer and do data analytics for the Lightning Network.
Cool, I'm Andre, CTO co-founder of ZBD. This is our village. I hope everyone's having fun. Yeah, we build everything on Bitcoin and Lightning and Nostr, you name it. So we're infrastructure providers. Head on over to zbd.dev and you'll find everything. We have the ZBD app. It's your entry point to Nostr, to Bitcoin, to earning sats, and a lot more in between. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Rhee. I'm co-founder of a company called WavLake. We are trying to get musicians onto Bitcoin by helping them earn sats with their music and better connect them with fans that really love that music.
I'm Keyan. I work at Stacker.News. Stacker.News is like Reddit, but your karma is withdrawable as Bitcoin.
Okay, awesome. You guys done some brief introductions, but this is all about building on Lightning. So if you could go into a little bit more detail on some projects that maybe you're working on right now, and everyone in the audience can kind of learn a little bit more about what you do.
The projects or the project, or like specific initiatives?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Long list.
Too much rope to hang myself. We play around a lot with sats and like figuring out what content is good, and so we do a lot with that. We think there's like something kind of interesting there. Like, can you figure out? Can you find signal somehow in spending? Can spending tell you with more certainty than anything else that someone values something? And I think it's kind of obviously true. But like, how do you what happens when you can discover spending and associate with things?
How exactly are you doing that? Or you mean like when people zap posts and they go to the top and that's valuable content, or?
Yeah, sort of like that. It's basically spending as a signal that someone finds something valuable, zapping being one form of spending, but there are multiple forms of spending on Stacker.News. Like you can boost your post artificially in the feed. You can do things like your posts and comments will get more expensive in certain cases depending on your activity. So yeah, that answers.
Can I ask a follow-on?
Yes.
Web of trust is an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic on Stacker.News.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a workshop on Web of Trust that fortunately many of you weren't here to see, and we use Web of Trust. We think trust is kind of interesting. It's like the original social network, actually. Web of Trust. I think it even predates possibly the internet. And it's, without centralized servers, they were trying to determine, how do I trust another person's PGP key that I haven't met? And so from that sprung Web of Trust and associated research. And there's just a bunch of cool stuff in there that I think will get applied so well to things like NoStir. I'm really hoping to see more of that there, because I think it just maps super well into a decentralized context. That's one of the reasons I like it, is because it provides this kind of personalized point of view that you might not otherwise get when you abstract things into a graph.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do at WavLake is, as many of you might be aware, artists have a hard time making a living with their music these days, whether it's through touring or whether it's through being on streaming sites that pay them very little for the music that's being played. We're trying to create a way for artists to be able to publish their music in an open way that's available not just on our website, but on any player that a developer or another company might want to create, and enabling that music to be paid in sats directly from the listener enjoying it. It's not intended to be purely altruistic, but there is an element of, hey, I like this. Imagine, the way I describe this to people who aren't familiar with Bitcoin or sats is, imagine if a like on Twitter was worth a fraction of a penny, and imagine if there were millions of those likes happening on a regular basis. Then you can sort of see at scale how valuable this could be to an individual artist who might get 1,000 views on Spotify or 1,000 plays on Spotify.
If they go viral.
If they go viral, or if those listeners choose to super like something. I'm a music fan, I'm a record collector, I make economically unsound decisions all the time because I like a certain band, like paying $30 for a vinyl copy of a record. I mean, that makes no economic sense, but it means something to me. I like having the physical merchandise, and I like knowing that, at least in my small way, I'm helping to keep this band going, because I want them to keep making more stuff. But in the sort of the larger scheme is, we'd love to see royalty accounting be more efficient. We'd love to see a world where sampling is a lot easier to do without having to jump through a lot of licensing and publishing hoops, just to have standard open licenses that are defined in a way where Bitcoin could just be this programmatic payment layer where the music that you're sampling or the music that you're playing on your podcast just has very clear, simple rules about how those creators should be reimbursed based on your usage. But yeah, ultimately what we want to see is more music, a wider variety available to more people in a way that's unique to their taste, or geared or driven by their taste. Because similar to the Web of Trust model, what we want to see happen on Nostr is, you have this idea of public identity. It doesn't have to be necessarily tied to your real identity, but you could have a scenario where you're publishing your zaps to certain artists, and those artists could know, here are my top 100 supporters. I can open up pre-sales for my concerts to these 100 supporters, or do an exclusive live stream, etc. You see where this is going. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of what we're trying to achieve.
Awesome.
So I'll go on the B2C side. So we've talked a little bit earlier about our APIs, so I'm not going to go into that. If you want to power anything with Lightning, we're here for you. On the cool stuff that we're doing, or new things, or trying novel mechanics to introduce sats, something that's very near and dear to us is the majority of our user base is not Bitcoiners, right? We're trying to appeal to a wider audience that may see Bitcoin as this very far distant, complex, scan-like thing. And so you need to introduce it in a different way. The majority of people out in the world and how they get Bitcoin is you first sign up for an exchange, you give them your entire life's information, you put $1 or whatever currency in your country into the exchange, you wait for that, then you buy the Bitcoin, and then that's it, right? You did it, great, you have Bitcoin. What do? You don't know. It's so risk on, right? You have to come in with value to exchange it. What the ZBD app tries to do is flip that on its head. You come in with 0 and you earn. You earn sats. It's all about earning sats and making it simple. So if you're earning sats, it's kind of like earning your paycheck. You're much more willing to spend it. But if I'm buying Bitcoin, it becomes this investment thing that I want to hold. But the ZBD app is the perfect way for you to get started if you're a non-Bitcoiner or a Bitcoiner too. It's just, you have games, surveys, you have social, which is our entire Nostr experience. You can zap each other, right? And it's a really sort of free and open space for people to interact, and sats are just part of it. You don't have to come in and deposit $100 to do something, right? It's just, it's a very frictionless way to get involved with Bitcoin. And once you want to go down the proverbial rabbit hole, we're all here for you, right? We have a bunch of guides, a bunch of knowledge base articles so you can do that. So we help people walk into Bitcoin, and we find that it's the best user experience so far. So if anyone wants to try that out, check the ZBD app, zbd.gg, yeah, that's what we're doing.
We've got invite codes too for social, so if you want to check it out, come see me back here.
Awesome. At Amboss, we're keenly focused on decentralizing the globe's payment network and the payment system. Right now, we've got Visa and MasterCard with over 52% of all transactions flow through their network at a cost of, say, 3%. When we have the Lightning Network, which allows people to access seamless finance at a cost that's 1,000 times less than traditional payment and settlement systems. So for us, like, how do we deliver this service to the world? One, they run a node, but there's a steep learning curve. So our job is really to deliver data-driven expertise on how to operate your node, and using crowdsourced data to actually be able to deliver those services. We also operate a marketplace, which we call Magma, which allows people to buy and sell Lightning channels. So if you want to run a business, you want to receive payments, you're going to need to buy Lightning channels from the marketplace. If you want to earn non-custodial yield on your Bitcoin, you're going to be on the sell side, and you'll be selling Lightning channels because you already have some expertise about how to operate a node. So matching those two up, and what we're working on is trying to eliminate the excuse of saying, I don't want to manage channels as a barrier to running a Lightning node. And so that's the key focus for us.
Hey, everybody. I think the question was like, what project am I working on? Well, Andre did a pretty good job with ZBD app. Check it out. And I mean, in terms of like, I guess a personal project, there is this amazing AAA game called Satoshi Settlers. That is a block explorer, essentially. It's a game where you have to figure out how the game works, because the UX is so terrible, but it's like a fun puzzle on trying to figure out what the hell's going on when you go to this website. And yeah, if you want to check out the cutting edge future of block explorers, go to satoshisettlers.com and check it out. And if you don't, I mean, it's like, are you even a Bitcoiner?
What are some of the cool game mechanics of Satoshi Settlers?
The question for the audience, the very important question was, can you please tell me why your game is so great, and talk about the mechanics? I would push back and say, I don't really want to talk about it. I want the user to explore it for themselves, if that's okay.
FOMO, go check it out. Okay, so we've been talking about what you guys are doing. So I'm interested to know, as you've been working on these really great projects, And have you guys had any obstacles? And as people are also maybe builders in the audience or want to start building, what are some obstacles that you faced and how did you pivot or overcome those obstacles? That's just kind of a piece of advice.
I mean, I think the generic problem for a lot of Bitcoin companies is getting people to spend Bitcoin. And maybe, just, I think spending it, it's not specifically a Bitcoin problem, it's like a general business problem. Like, how do you create something so valuable someone's willing to spend money on it? But in my case, I'm building a product where people normally get what they get from me for free. And so how do I convince them to spend? And Andre had a good point earlier, and it's you somehow allow them to earn more than they might spend, and that's you can kind of create this kind of circular thing, and perhaps you're pulling in money from outside sources somehow. We have ads, we have a job board, but that kind of goes in, and on net people are earning instead. And so I think spending, WavLake had the similar kind of problem. How do you encourage spending? Channel buying. How do you get? So it's really, I think that's the generic problem we all share that I had.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, we introduced our idea to a bunch of artists very early on, who, some understood Bitcoin, most had no idea. So I would get emails very early on, like, okay, what is the difference between this and Ethereum? Is a sat a token that you're creating? Really just fundamental rudimentary questions about what exactly this technology is all about. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is onboarding new artists and persuading them, or not even pushing too hard, but just explaining to them that this is a low risk endeavor. If you have some music that you want to share with the world and people like it, you can earn some money doing that. But there are a bunch of sort of mental hurdles that people need to jump in order to get to that point. I think you've said this before to me, and it sort of rings true. You should meet the users where they are. I'm sure everyone at ZBD has heard this many times. But it resonates with me because I can relate to having that experience talking artists through, because ultimately our site, our platform is nothing without a lot of artists with a lot of great music who are enthusiastic about what we're doing. On the sort of spending side of it, that's also a challenge. Some of the ways we've tried to go about that is there's a kind of a gamified experience in terms of, as a fan, we have a top 40 chart. And so if you want to see someone move up that chart, then you can send them a few sats. We've seen a handful of artists earn a decent amount of money in the last few months based on that kind of fan enthusiasm, which is really encouraging to see. But similar to what people are doing in Stacker.News, where they're encouraged to create unique, interesting posts. We want to do similar things with creating interesting playlists, creating interesting recommendations for people that you can also earn cents for.
Are you going to talk about the infrastructure challenges too, though? Or?
I can.
Yeah, you should go into that. So I'm going to skip that part. I think so selling Bitcoin is hard. Yes, sure. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, is it a token? Is it a scam? All that. I think Tiddle's going to touch on infrastructure, but being at the cutting edge of technology, especially money technology, is very tough. You're not just trying to do, hey, here's new tech. It's also screw all your understanding of money, flip it upside down, and here you go. And you're just expecting them to accept it, right? So I think that's pretty hard. This is so boring, but as a regulated fintech in the US, I will say that one of the hardest things for us has been to be able to walk this uncertain landscape of bureaucracy and all this kind of stuff. Like you never know where they're going to change some law or do something that will put your entire business in jeopardy, right? Next month actually, we're going to get 4 years of ZBD next month, which is insane to think about. But we've been in this journey with regulators and bankers and all this stuff since then, and we're not there yet, right? So it is an incredible challenge, and unfortunately not many companies, and they make it prohibitively expensive, right? So not many companies can actually get to the point of filing paperwork and doing these sorts of things, and so it puts startups in a position where they have to pick and choose their regulatory compliance nature, and it's very uncertain these days. And I know it's not the hottest topic, but it is a very topic of concern in general if you're a regulated institution in the US. The only other thing I would say to add to that is, again, it's about the cutting edge. It's literally, you're having to teach people about new models, and you have to meet the customer where they are. So selling someone Nostr because it's decentralized communication may mean jack nothing to them. Selling Nostr because it connects to other apps, that kind of sells, right? But selling, earning sats playing games is one thing, but putting Bitcoin into games is a whole other world. So it's very, very important that you're able to demystify like all of our products to a level that meets the customer and they see the value. And you may have to tweak that per customer base, right? So if you're a crypto person, I have to sell you something slightly different than if you're never heard of this entire world. So like meeting the customer, to your point, and then the regulatory piece is super important. But I'll let Tidwell talk about infrastructure after, which honestly is probably the biggest one.
Andre, you touched on so much there.
Sorry.
And you were spot on. I think like the key component of running a business is just risk management. For us as Bitcoin founders, sourcing capital to support our operations in this complete infancy of a time. Like, we're so early. I know this is like a meme, but like how are we going to find revenue to support our operations, because like all the VCs have to answer to their investors. Okay, like how are these businesses performing? Which means that for us as operators, we only have a limited amount of runway, and how are we going to strategically deploy our resources to survive as businesses, maintain some level of compliance, to like be able to justify our continued operations. It's a difficult challenge, as well as we have so much education work to do to help people understand the importance of our work and how to get them using our products, using our services, to make all of these things work together. Finding revenue, delivering products, scaling a team. There's an unlimited amount of challenges.
Just talk about us.
All right.
Talk about us breaking everything.
So, how much time I got? All right, so you said not long. All right, all of these people, you took all the time. What the heck? All right, so look, it's been rough out there. All right, the software doesn't even work half the time. You upgrade your software, all your channels get closed. You're like, what the heck is going on? Is this even a real thing? Did we really build a company around this software that barely works, and then people give us crap about being custodial? That's like, dude, have you ever used Lightning at scale? Go screw yourself. And it's just like, the software is getting way better, but it's super immature. What just happened with 17.2, right, with LMD? Like, everyone is complaining about their channels getting force closed, right? And that's just the software side. And the infrastructure side is a whole new can of worms. And this is like a software design pattern that isn't necessarily common. We're talking about software that is super hard to make, where your infrastructure becomes cattle, because we're talking about specific Bitcoin locked up in specific nodes with specific channels with specific people with specific settings, you know? And commoditizing and catalyzing, when I say cattle, I just mean nodes that don't have any sort of emotional meaning to you. You can kill them and spin them up as needed, versus right now, Lightning nodes are very much pets. They're a house pet. You have to feed them every day, water them. They take a lot of maintenance and care versus what I would like a Lightning node to be. And a lot of people have built, you know, certain infrastructure that wraps node implementations because of some current shortcomings via either scale or security. And, you know, going back to the software, I mean, Matt Corallo, you know, gave a talk last year about, you know, 5 ways Lightning is broken. And I'm sort of the opinion that one of the main reasons Lightning is succeeding as much as it is right now is because we don't have a whole lot of malicious people on Lightning right now compared to what we could have. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that could get super wrecked and stolen from, and there's just not a whole lot of coordinated attacks going on right now that could be going on, which is kind of like, maybe even the hackers are like, this is too much work, you know, like, who knows, but, so yeah, to answer your question, the problems, I mean, Andre obviously did it, you know, everyone did a great job talking about problems, but the actual technical problems are, over the last, you know, 3 years, it just seems like we keep finding new technical problems, unfortunately, and I imagine there will be a year in the 20s, hopefully, like 20 something, where it's like, oh, by the year 2026 or 7, it's like we finally don't have like known exploits with Lightning, you know? It's like, hey, okay, but right now we sort of have these attack patterns that you sort of have to build, you know, layers of security around. So those have been, for me, the hardest problem so far.
So this is my last question, and we'll do, I'm sure you guys in the audience may have some questions for everyone up here. But we're going to end kind of more on a positive note on advancements coming up, and what kind of advancements in Bitcoin and the Lightning Network are you guys excited about that can help builders in this space? Sure.
Okay, I'll work our way down. To be honest, there's so many things being proposed for Lightning upgrades. I know this is going to sound bad, but I hardly pay attention to them until it looks like they're actually going to get implemented. Like we talk a lot about any PlebLab, we talk a lot about L2 and all this mumbo jumbo, wumbo bubbo, and it's just like until it actually looks like it's about to cross the finish line within a couple months or something, or it's, you know, there's some sort of software BIP kind of, you know, voting mechanism going on where it's like, hey, like I can actually track this thing, and like maybe I really need to dig in and read the BIP and like really understand this. I mean, it's sort of exhausting. I actually, to be honest, Andre and Jesse might be way more qualified to answer these questions than me, but one thing that I would be very, very much a fan of, I'm not necessarily going to be super excited about splicing or any of that kind of stuff. What I'm really excited about is how can we potentially get like a Seglet V2 super channel factory of like a cross Schnorr sig ag of like, hey, we're going to open up 10,000 Lightning channels with one signature. Like, that's what I want. I want to see like, how does Lightning actually scale? Like, I don't really think Lightning right now scales. I think it hypothetically scales, but with all these forced closes and all these people opening and closing channels and doing all these use cases that weren't possible beforehand, like sending one set, you know, transactions and things that were like are way below the dust limit. Well, in my opinion, what Lightning's actually doing in practicality is not scaling the network, it's creating more demand for the network, and it's creating new use cases that weren't even possible before Lightning. So you're creating all this new demand for new types of transactions that weren't possible before. Meanwhile, a lot of the old types of transactions are still, that demand's still hot as well. So now these channels are super useful. Now that we're creating more of this, you know, on-chain demand for these new type style transactions, I think in the future Lightning is going to be very, very like scale worthy, but I don't really see it at the moment. And in practicality at least. So I'm interested in the future. I'm like, you need to look at the core devs at TabConf and be like, yo, bro, when Segwit V2? When cross-the-back? You know, like, when are we going to get these things that the long-beard Greg Maxwell promised us a long time ago? Not to say he did, but I'm kind of joking. But, you know, we've been talking about these things since 2016 and 17, and it's like, I want these things that we've been talking about, so, all right.
As far as like advancements go, really, like, I'm looking at the ecosystem because we've been building tools that make it easier for businesses to start operating, and we've had, you know, like when we first really started going, there was PlebNet. You know, this is the Lightning Network. It's a whole bunch of hobbyists running nodes, but that demographic is changing pretty rapidly, and it's going to happen quick. So, like, are we ready for like a maturation of the ecosystem? And that means answering some of the business needs of like accounting and liquidity and scale and who these connections are. So, like, how can we be ready, because the interest is growing as far as like generating yields. I mean, now there's starting to get some of the Wall Streeter folks going in there with like an ETF. I mean, it feels like the start of the institutional wave for Bitcoin, and can we be ready for that?
I was going to talk about some like technical stuff, splicing and ARC and whatever. But to Tidwell's point, it's still very academic and theoretical, some of it. Like, we finally actually got splicing, you know, going, and that's pretty cool, and I'd love to see that go to all the implementations. I think there's lots of benefits, but personally, being that we provide APIs for developers, and we also build products ourselves on top of Lightning, what I'm very interested in and looking forward to, and it's something that we work, you know, day in, day out in Santos with hackathons and teachings and etc. in our recent, you know, partnership with Pleb Lab. It's like, we keep talking about Bitcoin as this like low-level, super complicated thing. The majority of developers out there are not here. They are app developers up here, right? One of our jobs is to demystify, simplify, dumb it down, however you want to call it, and make it easy for people to get started. When we got started company 2019, but in 2018 when we were running Lightning nodes, that was very complicated, and to run just like, I just want to make a Lightning payment, right? It's many, many steps to just do that from an app. Now it's an API call, right? Whether it's ZBD or any other provider, right? Like that's a thing. It's one API call and you're done. And so I really, really look forward to the 6 billion types of experiences that get created that we have not even thought of. I use this example a lot, and it's maybe overused, but the folks building the first versions of the internet were not thinking that we were going to stream 4K video games from Japan to Brazil. That's not what they built the internet for, and it just became that because it evolved, whether through layers, whether through software, whatever it is. We have not even scratched the surface of what Lightning is going to do. We're now combining it with other open networks like Nostr for communication and identity. Like, this is going to explode, and we have not seen any of it. So I really look forward to Bitcoin and Lightning becoming yet another part of the app developer stack, the same way that they have, you know, their database in Postgres, their authentication doing this, they're gonna have their payments with Bitcoin, right? And then it's everywhere, and because it's open money, you're gonna take your money from Spotify, send to your Chase account, and then send to your other podcasting app, and send to your WavLake, send to Stacker.News, send to, like, it literally, the list goes on, right? It's unstoppable money. So I can't wait for the wave of app devs to come. Like, when they actually come, we will all know, because there will be a plethora of apps left and right. And it's coming. We're seeing it firsthand because people are just signing up and building experiences, but I look forward to the 10x and 100x magnitude gains in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm very much coming at it from the angle of that app developer space that I think you're describing. Our company is not necessarily focused on the low-level infrastructure, making sure this thing can scale. Obviously, those are very important things to us. Those need to happen in order for us to be successful, in order for the whole space to be successful. But you know, I'm really excited about, in terms of what is happening on Lightning. I think Nostr is a great example of it's just like a perfect marriage of this internet money with this social network that happens to just work really nicely together. What I've been seeing with some of the new nodes being running on mobile phones or in browsers, I know it's all very kind of early still, but that's also exciting to see the potential that there might be some more options for people who want to run nodes that aren't necessarily as technically savvy. Some of the LSP services that are popping up, Amboss, others, who are helping to provide that liquidity that's going to help enable users to be able to send payments with fewer failures, with higher level of success rate, like that. All of that is going to translate into better experiences for people. And ultimately, I think if this is useful and people become drawn to it because of that utility, we have no choice but to make it work. We have to figure out a way to make this scale. But I think if the demand is there, I think I'm optimistic that we can figure out some way to make it work.
Yeah, I think as I said so many cool things. I think the only thing I would add is that I'm pretty excited about the non-custodial ramping up. I think it's getting better and better. I think the connections for app developers to non-custodial sources are getting better. You have LNC just came out. It's gotten quite mature. It came out about a year ago. It's gotten quite mature. Now we have Nostr Wallet Connect. So you pretty much don't even need something like LNC unless you're quite concerned about certain things. So I think that in the splicing, I think that is making non-custodial mobile nodes just super easy to use. If any of you haven't used Phoenix yet, I highly recommend giving it a try. And one channel for everything. It's amazing. I think it's just like a peek into the non-custodial future we might have. I'm really excited about that.
Okay, awesome. We'll take it to you guys to see if you have any questions for anyone up on the panel.
Don't all raise your hands at once.
Sort of an extension of what you guys just discussed. I'd love to know maybe one thing from each of you, probably that's not technology, maybe it's macro, regulatory, whatever it is, the thing that you're most bullish on as the next big unlock for adoption of Bitcoin.
I don't know, they said the accounting thing recently, the FAS was pretty bullish, right? Like a bunch of FASB, a bunch of companies are waiting for that. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I hate being the guy, but like I'm sure the ETF will also play its role in making Bitcoin more appealing to general folks out there. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have?
Oh, sorry.
I think some of the getting clarity around the tax implications of small transactions would be pretty interesting. I don't know what you guys think of this, but I mean, you guys sound like you have lawyers. But I like that. I don't know. Like, what does it mean that people are zapping? What does it mean that people are spent to sat on something? I think if there was a threshold defined, I think it would make a lot more people feel more comfortable using these things.
I'm going to steal something that I heard last night over drinks from someone. There is a generation that is growing up right now where Bitcoin has always existed. I think that's a pretty powerful element to people's understanding of it as just a thing that exists in the world. For us, like the same way gold, oxygen, it's an element. Obviously this takes a little time to play out, but I think that's a really an interesting idea that there is a generation that is going to be going to universities, going into the workforce, creating things, spending money, buying homes, what have you, that all just are Bitcoin native, so to speak. And I think that could mean a lot.
The 16-year-old next to you was 2 years old when the iPhone came out. And they were also 2 years old when Bitcoin came out. So that's got to count to something, right? And they're all gamers, so they love ZBD.
Exactly.
I think for me, it's network effects. All of us are playing our small part on moving this whole system forward, but it unlocks an exponential function where this truly can transform our world, our ecosystem, how global finance works.
I don't have anything. I think I'm like technical, like in my opinion, you build it, they will come. I think it's all tech for me. Like if the tech is robust enough, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Here, here. Cara had a question.
Yeah, I throw it back to you, Andre. You asked me earlier. You had one wish you could go back to.
Shit. I don't know. One?
Just one.
Maybe like. Sorry, I'm putting me on the spot.
What is the question?
The question is, Cara had a presentation, and then I asked the question: if you had one wish, like a magic wand, and you could do one thing differently, what would you do? I don't know. Focus a bit more on education earlier on, I guess. Maybe it's something that's kind of a weak one, to be honest. Hire more Tidwells around. You know. Oh,
Please, yeah.
Sinking all our seed money into Bitcoin when it went $3,400.
Yeah, okay, that's a pretty good one. Yeah. And Tidwell even asked me. He was like, "Did we do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, some." He's like, "Some or all?" Some.
I was pretty bullish.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe that would be one of them. Yeah.
How about not spending all that time fixing CSGO servers?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. We've done so many different things. Like we managed so many CSGO servers in 2021. That's not even a core part of the business. So maybe spend less time on that. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, questions? Oh wait, hold on over here. Oh, okay, go there, Matt.
I feel like we had some, it's fair to do the negative talk about things that go wrong, but what are you guys most excited about that you're building or thinking about building, or it could be just like a protocol upgrade? Happy stuff.
We're messing around a lot around with ranking and web of trust and seeing what's there. I'm just really excited about like economies in a digital space. Like what the heck is there? I just had this feeling that there's like so much there, like so much of like real human economic activity that we can map into the digital world. And I don't necessarily mean it in a metaverse way, but I just mean there's like, I think there's something cool there. So that's like that's generally what I'm excited about.
What are you excited about?
Unfortunately, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I mean, cross-sig ag, B2, Taproot stuff, I'm excited about that. I mean, that's like, I don't know if we're ever going to get it, but I'm excited maybe about getting it. And obviously Satoshi sellers. I mean, it's like, I thought that was pretty obvious that the best use case for Bitcoin is SatoshiSettlers.com. And if you're a real Bitcoiner, you'll go to the website and explore the Bitcoin blockchain as a purist through a Ulam spiral.
I own a block in that.
There you go.
Another one that got scammed.
For us, it's liquidity automation. It will mean that there will be more businesses where you can spend your sats, if that's what you want to do, and not have to pay Visa every single time you do it. It's going to be huge for us.
Streamlining the process of onboarding people into this new world of internet. We have a bunch of new posters talks about internet citizen. That's kind of the gist of it, right? Where there's global money and the internet is a global thing. There's now global communications, identity software. So it's about being a global citizen, an internet citizen, and not like belonging to a specific nation state. So yeah, making it trivial for you to onboard onto that side. That would be my answer.
Did you want to?
Oh yeah, just quickly, I'm excited about what people are going to be doing now that they can remix content and create their own versions of either music or like create shows around music and enable people to be able to support the artists that they're featuring or that they're remixing. I think there's a lot of potential there where we can start building on top of these blocks that we've created.
Yeah, so for you guys as builders in the Bitcoin space, how do you find the balance between building out like features and functionalities for the Bitcoin ecosystem versus a more general population?
I don't necessarily think about the general population too much. I feel like I don't even serve Bitcoiners terribly well, and so that's mostly what I think about. It's like how do I serve this one group that I actually am like a Morris towards, but fully rather than spread my love across a bunch of other groups. But that's the way I think.
So the question is, how do you create products that are both good for Bitcoiners and people who know nothing about Bitcoin?
Yeah. How do you find the balance between the two, if any?
Yeah, I think we take the approach very much of you need to know nothing about this in order to enjoy it. I think I like to have a sort of a big tent approach to it where this should be a tool for anyone. And so I believe that we need to lower the barrier and the intimidation factors as much as possible and just make this seem as normal as anything else. Yeah.
2 points there. I think one, what we did at least is we created an open source arm. It's incredibly hard to continue building a product that is closed source, for example, and it's meant to be revenue generating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but also it has a perfect alignment with the ethos of open source Bitcoin, right? It's incredibly hard. We contribute from as little as opening GitHub issues on implementations that are failing to building full-blown open source software ourselves, but and that's what we have with NBD, and that's that side, but it's incredibly hard. But for me, it's more like, as much as we all love Bitcoin and as much as I love open source, et cetera, my take is if Bitcoin is not adopted, it almost doesn't matter, right? Like Bitcoin needs to be in people's hands. Like they need to have experiences, apps, whatever, software, like they need to be using Bitcoin in their own ways instead of just talking about Bitcoin or instead of helping. Like that's all great and noble, but if we're still here with 100 people in a room in 5 years, then we failed. It's a niche little thing that didn't go anywhere. Whoa, SatoshiSettlers.com.
That was a small conference, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I wasn't talking about that.
100 people in the room is a good size.
Yeah, it's tough, especially to find resources, right, to work on that.
It's an interesting question because it's just a continuous struggle. I mean, there's a battle going on both ways. Remember, before you got into Bitcoin, to have a polite conversation, you probably wouldn't talk about religion or politics or money. Well, that last piece is pretty fundamental to the whole reason we get together is to talk about money. And it's going to be a struggle because if we're building for Bitcoiners, money is front and center, and we can make the sexiest product imaginable for money. But for most of the rest of the world, they want the money to disappear somehow into the background. So having to walk that line and recognize that we have a different customer set with Bitcoiners than we have for the rest of the global economy.
I don't have a good answer for you, but one thing that it makes me think of is, are these, the general population, the Bitcoin population, does the Bitcoin population get more market share because people are using products that are like using Bitcoin behind the scenes, or are these people getting rugged by their fiat systems and they are saying, hey, this Bitcoin thing seems pretty appetizing? So I think for me, what's like a more interesting kind of like, since I don't have like a good answer, but what I think about, like the interesting thing I think about is, okay, what does it look like to convert that general population to be a Bitcoiner population in the first place? So.
Cool.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.